Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for inviting me. I suppose I will do it in English because my Spanish will stop very quickly, but anyway, so this presentation is based on a book that I published recently, The AI Paradox. And through that book, which is the first attempt that I had to write something for the general public, not a scientific or academic textbook, but really something for the general public, which is much harder to write than what I ever thought. I would have never started if I knew how hard it is to try to write in an easy and accessible way. And through this book, I try not so much to discuss what AI is or not is, not to make any predictions. Predictions are very easy to make. You can make whatever you want. They will come up or not, but they don't really give us any support to understand how to get to wherever we want to be. I thought that idea of paradoxes would be a more reflexive and supporting of understanding what are our options. So starting with where are we with AI nowadays? Oops, there's one more. And why did I read it? It's because AI is transforming the world. It creates a lot of paradoxes, but most importantly, we need to remind ourselves that AI is not inevitable. It's not something that comes down off the sky and we have nothing to do, we cannot control or we cannot do nothing about it. But it's shaped and is developed and it's implemented and it's impacting us by the choices that we make. And we need to understand what are these choices, which choices do we have, how can we choose, and what are the different options. It starts with us, and it needs to be a development that really aligns with our purposes and our needs, and not so much with what the technology can do. What technology can do, it's very different from what we want technology to do and what technology should do. Where are we today? I think this slide basically describes AI in 2026. In one end, there is all this discussion around the seemingly consciousness of these systems. For a large part, I will not go into much details here, but for a large part, this is a gimmick from the big tech for continuous interest and especially continuous investment on the development in the way that they are proposing to do it, which is very much based on the scalability. We need more and more and more data, more computation, more hardware, more energy, because we are going to build these systems that are going to do everything, know everything, and interact with us in a full purpose and conscious way. That one might be worrying, might be leading a lot of the discussions, but when we look at the impact and what most of our organizations and governments are doing, the AI first issue is one which concerns me the most. I just came yesterday from Porto. I was there in a conference or a summit for leaders in the marketing and communication field in Portugal. And it's amazing how many of them really explicitly talk about being an AI-first company, and most of them are more or less in this type of developments. We are taking AI implementations, we are taking AI developments because everyone else is doing it, because it's the modern thing to do, because if we don't do it, something must be wrong with us, but no one is really considering sufficiently what is the purpose. No one is really asking ourselves, why are we rushing after this AI hype? And those are, at the same time, what are we facing today more and more is the dark face, the dark side of what these systems can be doing. We are seeing more and more issues of mental health problems. We are seeing suicides because of interactions with AI. We are seeing this huge investment on data centers and on the hardware and infrastructure that it's needed for these huge scalability issues that big tech claims is necessary to move forward, and that is coming with consequences and costs and impact on our lives, whether we like it or not. So the first paradox is the one about what does AI really mean. The more we talk about it, the less it seems we agree on what it means. It means everything and anything is a kind of a blanket concept to address everything. Like a few years ago, we were talking, all of us were talking about digitalization, like everything. But now everything is AI. Everyone and every development is AI. And if you don't really include AI in your development, something must be wrong with you. But at the same time, we are also more and more believing that the only type of AI that is worth considering is the chatbots, the Gen AI, the AI that generates content on different types of ways. There is a lot between one and the other. There is a lot more than that. But it is becoming an empty signifier. It's basically a marketing buzzword, and all the hype around it is much more about what the marketing is pretending that AI is than any real basis on the scientific understanding and work on AI that we have been doing for more than 70 years by now. Because it's so fuzzy and so fluffy and so unclear, it becomes very difficult to really have any type of meaningful conversation. It's difficult to have a meaningful governance, because if we don't really know what it is, if it's something that is indistinguishable from magic, how can we govern magic? But at the same time, it becomes difficult to also to innovate. Because in one end, it seems that you can only innovate if you are using the last foundation models or the chatbots and agentic developments. That's the only innovation that you can do according to the ways that people talk about it. And it difficult the possibility to explore alternatives. AI is much more than just chatbots and foundation models. There are a lot of different developments, theories, methods, tools, techniques, and so on, that could be very useful and are very useful on many cases, but not necessarily what people are caring about. I just had recently a project proposal rejected because I was not really using AI. Yes, I was not using chatbots, but according to what I'm doing with knowledge representation was very much AI, but it was not seen as AI, and the call was about AI. And this, at the end, serves the interests of those that want to keep the control. Those that want to make AI what they want it to be, and what they want it to be is this scalable, ever-scaling and ever-growing amount of data and compute and infrastructure, which keeps them, at least for a time, in charge of what AI can or cannot be. But AI is not, at the same time, AI is not neutral, is not something which has no consequences. It can advance our well-being, and there is a lot of work around that. And just next week, I will be in Geneva for the United Nations Global Dialogue on AI, in which the whole world will come together again and again to plea for the use of AI around human well-being, human dignity, supporting and making it accessible for all of us. But at the same time, it can and it is undermining our well-being every moment of the day. At the end of the day, this is about our choices. It's about what we are doing with AI, how we are implementing AI, how are we developing AI, and what kind of choices we can or are willing to make. Governing AI is much more about governing ourselves, governing these choices, than just about the technology. And that's why this idea that governance is always behind the technology makes no sense whatsoever. Governance is not something that needs to be aligned with technology. It needs to be forward, showing the direction and not so much determine exactly where the technology, how it looks like in the concrete development, but more guaranteeing that we are doing this technology in a safe and agreed environment. So can we make an AI definition that is responsible, that is aligned with the aims and this well-being and this direction in which we would like to see AI? It is difficult, and I'm not going to try to go there, but what I want to say is that, again, AI is not inevitable, is not something that happens to us. More and more policymakers, more and more governmental leaders, both in governments and in industry, are talking about AI like we talk about the weather. It happens. We don't really can do nothing about what the weather will be tomorrow. We can just decide to take an umbrella or go to the beach or address the results or the consequences of the weather. But AI is not the weather. AI is designed. AI is developed by us. Even in the future possibilities in which AI is going to develop AI and so on, it all starts with our choices. And who is making these choices? Who is taking the decisions? What values, what approaches are being considered? How are we prioritizing these values and these principles? Those are the questions that we need to ask ourselves. Those are the questions that are determining what AI is or is not. What no one is asking, and we are pleading for that, is instead of this AI first, we need to go to the question zero. And question zero asks, why are we going to use AI? Why are we going to develop AI before we rush into deciding how to do it? But talking about all of this is not talking about technology. At the end of the day, is understanding AI not as a technological system, but as a social technical ecosystem. An ecosystem in which technology exists, not in a vacuum, but within a system of organizations that develop, research, govern, use, maintain, impact, and are impacted by this type of development. Regulating AI is, and talking about regulation, talking about ethics, talking about governance, is about governing this social technical system. Is not just about deciding what the technology looks or not looks like. There is not a technology fix for all the issues that we are facing, but there are in many cases a societal and institutional fix for all of that. So responsible AI solutions need to be much more about the societal aspects than just about technology. And I will skip this one. So the other one is the ever problem of what is intelligence. And I have been around for a long time. And what is artificial intelligence? What is intelligence? I've been around AI for a long time. I suppose Ramon has been around longer than me, but I've been, the first AI system that I built was in 1986, which is 40 years ago. Before that, many of you were born, but also many of you realized that AI existed. At that time, one of the definitions that we joked about is that the definition of AI that says that AI is what AI cannot do yet. Maybe some of you remember this thing, the Clippy of Microsoft, which is very much an agentic AI of today. It reacts very much in the same way, tries to help you writing letters and whatever. It's as annoying or maybe even less annoying than the ones that we find today and try to get Copilot out of your team's work is becoming more and more difficult. It was an annoying thing. It was or not AI, but the point is that as we try to develop AI, as we advance in AI, we need to understand a couple of things. First, that intelligence is not linear. And by that I mean that there is not only one direction and becoming more intelligent in one type of direction. And basically what AI systems try to do is to improve our capacity, our cognitive capacities or our capacities of problem solving. But that's not the whole way that humans are intelligent. And by becoming more able to solve problems doesn't really mean that we become also all more intelligent in other directions. There is a constant going on discussion about what are we humans better at, what are machines or AI better at. More and more we are getting to be convinced that we actually are better at nothing and machines are much better at anything than us. We see that especially this year it's even more evident, and we see that in terms of the labor situation. There are hardly any junior positions anymore. I was just reading an article this morning from the Dutch newspaper in which even though in the Netherlands unemployment is very, very low, unemployment in the ages until 25 years old is really rising like crazy. There is no jobs to be gotten by people in junior entry-level positions because AI is better at it and we don't really need to employ people anymore. But what is AI and how are we addressing it is changing all the time. And now the next frontier seems to be the superintelligence and so on. But we have had many of these frontiers and many things that we don't really talk about like being AI anymore. Spam filters, search engines, pathfinding and planning technologies, the autocorrect and text spelling type of things. Chess is also something which was a big thing 30 years ago, and now it's just automation. Even machine learning. I was in one of these World Economic Forum meetings last year, I believe, and all people were more or less excusing themselves that their company was not really doing AI, they were just doing machine learning, by meaning that they were not really using the Gen AI or the chatbots of today. So intelligence, it's very difficult to compare human and machine intelligence because both of them are developed based on very different premises, but also because there is no direction or no clear understanding of what is what. And with AI, we keep moving for the next frontier, and all what have been developed before very quickly becomes just automation and not AI anymore. But anyway, and in all these ways that we are looking at AI models the world in a very different way than what we people would do. AI is still conceived as a rational system. AI agents, AI systems have preference or priorities, and they try to optimize their actions, their decisions based on those preferences. This is kind of a standard definition from one of the most used textbooks. And this type of rationality is very different from our own rationality. We act in context. We are not able to, our rationality is contextualized. We are also able to pursue incompatible, inconsistent, and different motives and beliefs. We don't really need to be consistent at all. None of us is consistent. We believe all kinds of things that cannot be taken together, but even though we are able to very well reason and function, our actions are not only influenced by the optimal decision for a specific context or for a specific issue, but they are influenced by the context, are influenced by what other ones do or not do, and by the situations in which we are. We are also not maximizers. We are much more satisficers. We work until it's good, and good is good enough, and we don't go forever on this type of optimization as many AI systems do. It has also been studied that the way that we conceived AI is very much based on a Western perspective of the world. We value in the West, we value issues like optimization, efficiency, rationality, autonomy, and so on. And those issues are much less understood, or at least very differently understood, when we look at the global South, when we look at other types of cultures and philosophies. So again, AI is shaping the world in a way that is very specific to some situations, but not to all of us. And we try, by building these rational systems, these optimizing systems, it's equivalent to try to build a huge chess game with all the rationality of playing chess, and then try to use that to address the very complex situations of the world as we are today. So the question of what is AI is not really the relevant question, because we are building these systems. We have control of what we are building. The question is much more about what do we want AI to be, and not so much about what AI is or is not. And what do we want AI to be? That leads us to a lot of questions and a lot of issues that need to be considered in a context and situation-based way. One of the questions that we could ask is about, do we want AI to be human-like? Why? What for? What does it mean to be human-like? Is to look like me, to speak like me, to speak like someone else? Is there a kind of an average human that we can compare AI to? That's one of the discussions that goes on. And if you talk with people in the AI ethics community or the responsible AI, they will tell you right away, no, this human likeness, that's exactly what we don't want. It's very bad to go in that direction. We want AI to be tools. So, okay, we want AI to be tools, but then also with tools, we need to think about what is this tool going to be, who is going to benefit from this tool, what is the impact of the tool. I'm left-handed, I cannot use a scissors like right-handed people can use. So even simple tools come with affordance, and we need to ask ourselves, what are these tools that we want to be? Also, another question that we would like to look at is, do we want AI to be a simulation, to help us understand intelligence by building models of intelligence, or do we want AI to have an active intervention in the world? The two things are very different. Techniques that are good for simulation are not necessarily good for operation, and we do need to understand. The first one, understanding intelligence by building models, is the original aim of AI as it started in the 50s, but nowadays we are building things that really have actions in the world, and they are very different. The techniques and the capabilities need to be very different. Do we want AI to be this God that big tech is trying to convince us to be? Something that is going to solve all our problems and do everything and take over control over our actions and so on? Or do we want it to be a much more distributed and participatory effort, taking sustainability and power into consideration? And maybe finally the most important one, do we want AI to do as we do, to tell us, to be better than us and say what is the right thing to do? Or do we want AI to be descriptive and look at the world and at the data as we are creating it? So do we want AI to do as we say or to do as we do? And if we want AI to be normative, who is going to set these norms? Who is going to decide what is right, what is wrong? What is going to decide what is the direction we need to go or not? Which leads us to the issue of justice, which is another of the paradoxes. And the paradoxes here is that by trying to build systems that are less biased, we don't necessarily get more justice, and definitely not more social justice. Bias is about the situation, is about what we have, is about the observations that we have about the world, but these observations and this data that we have are determined by a world in which not all of us, and justice is not, social justice is not equal for all, and therefore by taking away the bias we are not really addressing the underlying issues that create the data that we are now trying to clean. By trying to clean the data, we are not solving the situation in which this data was generated. So the bias solutions, and it's of course, it's definitely important to make sure that the data that we use is as clean and as fair as possible, but by definition, data is biased. Data is not something that exists in the world like a natural resource. It's something that we construct. There is no data that is not constructed, and because we construct it, we are necessarily introducing some bias. We are deciding which data are we collecting, where are we collecting, when are we collecting it, how are we collecting it, who is collecting it, and all of this necessarily introduces bias into the data that we have. Making AI decisions statistically fair doesn't mean that the outcomes are necessarily just, and we need to be very aware of this difference and this inherent dichotomy between the two. And by trying to claim that now that our data is fair, everything will be okay, is a way that risks us to allow to perpetuate the injustice that was behind the data that we got, and perpetuate this injustice by claiming that the algorithms and the models are fair. AI still generates nurses as being this, but the reality is maybe the same. So if we want to claim that it's unfair or is not right that AI generates nurses' images as being female, we are not very far from the reality. So is it fair to generate only images of nurses, female nurses, or is that just describing reality? That's one of the questions, but the other one which we also have to realize, the more AI is generating images of female nurses, the more images of female nurses are there in the world, and therefore the next version of AI has even more images of female nurses to generate the next set of images of female nurses. So we are perpetuating this type of issues just by asking and generating more and more data and synthetic data in this way. Maybe the issue here is not only so much that they are all female, but they are all young, they are all smiling. I don't think nowadays all nurses are smiling and have time to stand in front of the hospital and make a picture to us. They are unfortunately overworked and overstressed. So maybe that's also part of the issues that we need to address, not just gender, but also many other things. If we try to ask AI to generate a more balanced vision of nurses. It takes some time, but you get something like that. And again, they are now gender balanced and a little bit ethnicity balanced, but they are still very young and very smiling and so on. So is this one, the last one, more better and more fair to develop, or should we stay with the other ones? Who is setting the rules? Who is deciding what is right or wrong? And what are the implications for society of all this type of generated images of whatever we are generating? This one is important. This is how AI sees the world. This is the data that we have for the world, in the world, that will be used to train and to use AI systems. This is an image from the Mozilla Internet Health Report of 2022. If anything, today is probably even more skewed than what is there. It is also important to read the one there in top. 50% of this data is connected to 12 institutions in the world. So the concentration of data is maybe even more important than the amount and the distribution of the data. It is very much around with what people call in sociology the weird demographics. Is also very much aligned with GDP. If you look at GDP, probably the world is like this. But is this the world we want AI to see? And how can we address and generate a more equitable world, as the world is, for to deal with the models and the systems that we are developing. It is definitely not one based on population. Africa and India are the most populous parts of the world at the moment, and they are kind of the most skewed and narrow and skinny there in this image. So we need to look, to understand what we are doing when we are focusing basically only on data to generate the models that we are using. Now, another, and stop me when it's time because I lost track of the time. The ever-present discussion of regulating, and the idea that regulation is something which is going to be bad for innovation and so on. First, there is no field of development, no industry in which there are no regulations, in which there are no governance issues. No one would want to live in a world where we have no governance at all. You wouldn't want to drive here today either by your own car or by bus or even walking if you knew that cars had no brakes, that cars had no seat belts and airbags, that people driving those cars, people driving those cars had no driver's license, and that there were no traffic rules at all, not even rules saying in which side of the road you should be driving. None of us would want to be in a world like that. The same happens in the pharmaceutical industry, in the electricity industry, in the energy industry, in the aeronautics. So every industry, every field of operation has rules. And we need to have rules, because without rules we cannot really exist. Why we would think that AI needs no rules whatsoever, it really baffles me. I don't really understand what is the point, only to say that those that claim that they don't want AI to have any rules or any regulations, actually what they are meaning is we want to be the ones deciding what are the rules and regulations for what AI is going to do, and we want that to benefit our own operations in a way that benefits us and too bad for the others. Regulation is need for coordination, is need to ensure trust. We wouldn't trust the traffic if there were no rules there. And it also provides a basis for the, let's say, a level playing field for those that are trying to really innovate in this field. There is a lot of work being done. Just yesterday, yet another report on the state of AI and also coming with principles and guidelines appeared. So the point is not the lack of principles and guidelines. The issue is making this type of principles and guidelines, to which we all seem to one or way agree with, to make them operational, and make them operational in a way that it's supporting and facilitating development and innovation, and not just restricting the way we are doing. Because regulation is not just about prohibiting things. We always think about regulation as something that is going to limit our capabilities, but regulation can be exactly enforcing and facilitating development, can provide incentives to go in a specific direction instead of just limiting the capabilities that we have. Oops, where I got now? Yep. So, responsible AI is not a choice. There is not a choice between innovation and governance, but governance, if we design it well, and a lot of governance, like a lot of AI, is not really designed well, but if governance is designed well, it can really be a stepping stone for innovation. Now, I have only 5 minutes, so I will go a bit quick. Power. The more AI we get, actually, the less control we have. At this moment, the more we are using AI, the more we are looking at what is available. I mean, in terms of AI, that it's available for organizations, for us as citizens, the chatbots, the generative AI systems that we have. The more we get of them, the more we are relinquish our own control over what we have. They are claiming or telling us, basically, we are giving you these wonderful systems. We don't really know how they work, but they are great. And if there are any problems, we'll fix them as we are going on. So we are guinea pigs for all these systems. We are the beta testers for all what they are doing. And we are doing this all willingly and taking the grunt of the consequences, like I showed in one of the initial slides, without really thinking of what we're doing and without questioning the power of these companies. This power concentration is making a couple of things. One is the lack of transparency and lack of accountability to the public. It is also limiting the innovation and the research exploration in AI. They are all doing exactly the same thing. They are going after this scalable idea that in order to get better AI, we need much more data, much more computing centers, much more infrastructure. And if we get this, we'll get better AI. The AI that they are developing is for a large part probabilistic and based on the statistics in steroids, like some people say. It is only one type of the ways that we can understand intelligence, that we can understand knowledge, that we can understand development. So they are narrowing the field of AI to the kind of AI that they are developing, the kind of AI that is supported by the scalability that they are working on. And it's also, it's narrowing the capabilities and the research in AI and is making it much less transparent and much less responsible for all of us. I will move here. This is all things that come in the book. I don't have time for here. We are regulating a big piece of blurb that we don't really understand anymore what they put there behind. Their power is becoming unacceptable. They say things like climate change is lost, the fight against climate change is lost. The only thing we can do is invest in AI and hope that AI is going to solve climate change for us. It was said by Eric Schmidt 2 years ago, somewhere in Davos, I suppose. That's the kind of power that we are letting them take. AI is using our world in all ways and in others. most importantly, investments in AI, especially the investments, public investment in AI, investment of public money in AI, in data centers, in infrastructure, is investment that is not being done on something else. And most of this investment is done by this fear of missing out. Everybody else is investing in AI. Everybody else is building data centers and infrastructure. We need to do the same. But public investment there is not being sufficiently and democratically questioned in terms of what are the alternatives and where should this money go, if not into potentially obsolete and useless data centers. I will leave the superintelligence away, and I will end this before they kick me out. So AI is not inevitable, is not unstoppable. It is shaped by our choices. What we choose, who chooses, when we choose, is determining what AI is. AI is not a solution to all our problems. It solves and supports a lot of problems, but is not a unique solution, is not a solution that can be done without us, and not all problems need AI. The decisions we make today are influencing the way that AI and our future will be later. We need to ask much more about why are we doing this, and starting deploying and building after we understand why we are doing it. Thank you.
Any questions? You have the chance to ask any question, to be clear.
Yeah.
So you're saying innovation is not a race, but it is a race. We are always racing innovation. Companies are competing to get products to market first. How can you say innovation is not a race?
We are racing, but we should ask us why are we racing? And is quick and is speed the best way to innovate? Or is sometimes better to take a moment to think about what we are doing, and we might come with a much better solution than just racing behind other ones. By racing, we are always assuming first that there is a finish line, a moment in which we are going to decide what is right or wins or loses, and it's also forcing us to go in the same direction. We are racing like all following the leader or following the direction. What I say is that we need to be much more aware of why are we racing, what do we want to achieve, take the time to reflect about that, instead of blindly going with speed first instead of thinking about why. That is what I mean.
Well, I'm going to sort of advocate for the market. So investors putting up money are investing because they believe that there's something important to be solved. If we look at medicine, for example, in some sense there are finish lines for individual diseases, but there's always more to be done in medicine. So, and I don't think we would have much debate about whether we should be working on problems in medicine.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's more that the technology we have right now has many potential uses. We don't know which of those will actually work, right, will be effective. Which ones will be cost effective, which ones will be, where, if we think about cost also in terms of all of its environmental and social impacts as well, we don't know. And that's often true with new technologies, that we just do not know.
Sure.
And the idea that we can determine that in advance is not going to work. It's never worked before.
Yes and no. I don't think that it's the fact that it has worked before. The point of following the market and what the market decides is very much a very short-term approach. The market just wants return on investment in the next 3 months because that's when their stock shareholders will meet and they need to have their profits. We need a longer longer term development and understanding where we're going. If we are just following what the market says, we are always behind on what we would really need to be. And going after the market is again a very Western and very individualistic approach to society, which might work where we are, but doesn't really necessarily work for the whole world. We need to be a much broader and much more understanding that there are other ways to look at development than what shareholders of these investors want to have, because that is just based on what is going to provide the highest revenue in 2 months or 3 months, and not really looking necessarily at the consequences of what that is getting us. Where we are today with climate change and climate impact is for a large part the result of this rush after what the market wants.
It's and the market wants just our own greediness as individuals. We want meat, we want cars, we like to fly. I don't think it's just the market. The market delivers what people want and people consume that. Right?
I think that I don't think we need to go into this discussion. There is a lot more to it. Neither you or I are sociologists or anthropologists or people who really understand the market or people. I do believe that the market is only one of the factors that we need to take into account, and we need to be much more reflective. And also for companies and for startups, rushing after the solution is proven again and again that is not the best strategy. Thinking a little bit before...
Getting the COVID vaccine out quickly was a rush, and it was a race, and it was a very good thing.
I mean, there are examples...
But it was done by governments as well as corporations.
There are examples, positive examples and negative examples all over, but anecdotes is not the way to decide how to take a broader approach.
Well, just to close this, I mean, this is, of course, why the Valencian government is investing in this, is that we do want to go beyond just what the market is dictating. And so it's very appropriate to talk about these issues here.
And the Valencian government is investing on long-term and the research and based approaches are not just rushing for the next big thing. There's a question here.
Hi, Virginia. Manuel here. Thanks for the enlightening presentation. I do have a question for you. From what I gather, from what I gather, you would be in favor of regulating AI usage. Let me give you an example. Back in 1400s, 1500s, the Ottoman Empire banned printing press because it was printing was too dangerous.
Yeah.
It was too dangerous for people to read certain things. And I do agree it is data and there are potential uses that are negative for the population. There are also very good potential uses in medicine, in science. I think the issue here really is that we're not used to the technology. We're not prepared for it. And perhaps in these initial phases, it needs to be regulated. Is that your point?
I see your point, and it's a point that many people have. I don't think that we need to regulate the technology in itself. We need to regulate and to agree on the space and the context in which this technology is being used, is being deployed, and so on. It's not saying about what the technology can or cannot be, but we need to agree on basic rules. If, for instance, we want that the systems that we use, the technology that we use, should be explainable, then we need to say that. And then it's not up to us, not up to the regulator to say how explanation can be done, but we are saying that if we are putting something in the market, make sure that that thing is able to be verifiable or explainable or whatever. that means that the issue then is an issue of innovation. How are I going to build this system while making sure that it is explainable, or that it is using a minimum amount of energy resources or things like that. So we need to put these boundaries and not saying how the technology is about. Having said this, most of the regulation that I have seen around is done completely wrong. And not all regulation is good. The AI Act is definitely not one which we should ever be very much proud of, and especially now that they are changing it with Omnibus, it's becoming a Swiss cheese that no one wants. But saying this, putting this type of aims, we want technology to be explainable. We want technology to be able to be minimizing energy. We want technology to be able to guarantee this or these things. This is not imposing or is not saying how are we going to build it, but it's exactly providing and opening the opportunity to innovate, because then we have the chance to create the systems that have these characteristics.
And I do agree. However, on the flip side, by imposing restrictions on energy consumption, for example, you would be hampering my development, which requires a lot more power. I do agree with you, but some people would argue the opposite. So
there is no law that says that scalability is the way to go. It's actually not the way to go.
Yes.
Let's go and try other things. There is more to intelligence than just adding more data and more dirty data and more dirty systems that are using all the energy. Let's go and do that. Let's stop this idea that scalability is the only way to build AI. There are many more theories, many more methods, many more tools, many more approaches that will get us the same or better results with a fraction of the energy, a fraction of the effort, a fraction of the costs that we have now. If we are not really pointing to that, we are just creating a world in which we soon, like in the Netherlands, habitations, houses are competing for energy with the data center. And they are determined by government. We cannot build this flat building anymore because we let Microsoft build a data center in the same place. And there is no law of nature that says that scalability is the way to go. No other field scales forever, and no other field, so now we have to stop the discussion as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.